Questions linger after a suspected case of human trafficking in Fond du Lac involving a 12-year-old girl. Fox 11's Brady Meyer brings us the facts of this disturbing investigation.
Early Sunday morning, a 12-year-old girl showed up at a stranger's door in the town of Oakfield. She asked him for help, leading to a call for law enforcement.
When deputies arrived, they started talking to this girl and quickly realized the magnitude of the allegations and the seriousness of the crime.
According to Fond du Lac County Sheriff Ryan Waldschmidt, the girl was able to escape after a man tied her up and blindfolded her. Authorities say the suspect paid the victim's mother to spend time alone with her.
She was blindfolded, she was restrained, and we believe he had every intent to assault her, and thankfully this brave 12-year-old fought back.
Authorities located and arrested the suspect at a Fond du Lac residence Monday night. He's currently being held in the Fond du Lac County Jail and is awaiting formal charges. Investigators say he's a 30 or 31-year-old Nicaraguan man who has used multiple aliases since entering the U.S. over 2 years ago.
What has transpired since October of 21, when he crossed the border illegally, to today's date, or this past weekend's date, that's all being determined by the detectives, but we know he obviously landed in Fond du Lac County and resides here.
The victim's mother also in custody.
The detectives are still working through what the charges will all be. There's still a lot of details to the case, background information, follow-up interviews that they're conducting, but there will be likely some significant charges that may include things like failure to protect a child, child trafficking or human trafficking component, some form of a sexual assault charge.
As for the victim and her siblings,
they're safe and in good hands right now.
They've been placed in protective custody with the Fond du Lac County Human Services Department. Waldschmidt doesn't anticipate any additional arrests, though that will be decided as the investigation continues. In Fond du Lac, Brady Meyer, Fox 11 News.
Tell us a little bit, I guess, what happened. We got this press release, obviously, and before asking these specific questions, can you just kind of give a little overview of what's going on?
Sure. So Sunday morning, shortly after midnight, a resident in the rural town of Oakfield, very rural and remote area of the county, reported a 12-year-old young girl had shown up at his door seeking help, stating that she had been assaulted and had fled from a vehicle that was in the area. And thankfully that resident took her in and kept her safe and called for help, and deputies were dispatched to respond. So when deputies arrived, they started talking to this girl and quickly realized the magnitude of the allegations and the seriousness of the crime, and so detectives and additional resources were deployed, and then over the course of the next 40 hours, a lot of information and leads were developed in working to determine who the suspect was, where he was, and then it ultimately resulted in the execution of a search warrant last night in the city of Fond du Lac at a private residence where the suspect was taken into custody by our SWAT team.
So, read in the release that the mother was involved with this too. Could you just kind of talk about her involvement with what happened?
Mm-hmm. So, from a high level, basically what we've learned is it sounds like the male suspect had paid the mother for time with the child, with the 12-year-old, and the mother had accepted money in return for giving her 12-year-old to this adult male, who then proceeded out into this rural area of Fond du Lac County, and you know, she was blindfolded, she was restrained, and we believe he had every intent to assault her, and thankfully this brave 12-year-old fought back and did what she needed to do to get out of that situation, realizing what was unfolding, and knowing she had to do something, and you know, so I can't commend her enough for her actions to get herself out of that situation and seek help at a residence. But mom was taken into custody then Sunday for based on that information, and will be facing charges, and then again through the rest of the investigation over the next 40 hours or so, resulting in locating and taking into custody that male suspect as well.
So this male suspect and the mother, they haven't been in court yet, but are there charges referred, and if so, what can you say what those charges are?
Correct, yeah, so the detectives are still working through what the charges will all be. There's still a lot of details to the case, background information, follow-up interviews that they're conducting, but there will be likely some significant charges that may include things like failure to protect a child, a child trafficking or human trafficking component, some form of a sexual assault charge, and likely some other charges that will come out of this once all of the details are gathered and the reports are put together. That's the phase we're in right now, is the investigative phase, and then that will all get referred to the district attorney's office, who will ultimately decide what charges to file in the criminal complaint.
Is there any possibility that there's anyone else involved and that there could be any more arrests to come with this?
That's always a possibility. I'm not aware of any personally right now, but I don't know every nitty-gritty detail that they're still working on. We've got, like I said, the full detective bureau working basically full-time on this yet, so there will be many more details to come, and we'll follow up on all of that, but right now I'm not aware of anyone else at this time.
And so the release, I can't remember where it said the guy was from, but he wasn't from the U.S., right? And can you talk about how you were able to trace him? Because I also read that there were some aliases given, so you can just kind of tell me how you were able to kind of track him down and figure out where he came from.
Mm-hmm. So when we learned through the young victim in this case, we learned and through the mother and other follow-up, investigative follow-up, we learned who the suspect was and contacted Immigration and Customs Enforcement to see if he was in their database, and we learned in October of 2021 he crossed the border from Mexico into the United States illegally, was captured by Customs and Border Protection agents, transferred to a processing facility where they took his information, gathered his story of why he was entering the country illegally, and then released him with basically instructions to follow. What has transpired since October of 21, when he crossed the border illegally, to today's date, or this past weekend's date, that's all being determined by the detectives, but we know he obviously landed in Fond du Lac County and resides here currently, but it kind of goes to show that, as the saying goes, every state is a border state, and we're experiencing more and more encounters with those who are here illegally or who have crossed the border illegally. And a couple months ago we had a stabbing incident involving another person here illegally who stabbed a female, and he's in our custody on attempted homicide charges. And it's frustrating from a law enforcement standpoint. Our community supports law enforcement, supports law and order, and we don't want to see these crimes committed by anybody. But then when you add the component of those coming to this country, claiming asylum, claiming it's not safe where they come from, but then we see the violent crimes they're committing here, and that doesn't apply to every single person that's crossing the border illegally, but certainly we are experiencing some violent crimes that, if they were not here, would not be, being committed in our community, and it's concerning. And I think our residents are concerned, and I personally think every American should be concerned, because it's not just a Fond du Lac problem, it's not just a Wisconsin problem, it's occurring across the nation.
I understand if you can't speak too much to this because of safety reasons, but are you at least able to say if the girl and her siblings are safe and in good hands right now?
Yeah, that's exactly the right way to put it. They're safe and in good hands right now, yes.
Okay, so what's next for this investigation of this case?
Yeah, so detectives are working, like I said, through other investigative information, reports, interviews, follow-up, and then the reports will get put together. We're in constant communication with the DA's office, keeping them apprised of the status of the investigation, and ultimately all of the details in those police reports will make it to the DA, who will determine what charges to file, and that's kind of the next step in the process.
And I think I only have one more question. The press release mentioned that there were a couple agencies that worked with this, the city, the police department, Borders and Customs, a few others. Can you just kind of talk about everything that kind of worked together to get to where we are right now?
Yeah, this was a significant, manpower intensive or law enforcement agency intensive set of resources that went into this overall investigation that resulted in this arrest within 40 hours of a significant crime. And so it was not just sheriff's deputies. They were working in conjunction with Customs and Border Patrol or Immigration and Customs Enforcement at the federal level, working in conjunction with State Department of Criminal Investigations at the state level, and then local law enforcement, our partners at the police department here in the city of Fond du Lac. Our SWAT operation involved a couple different ambulance services. Fond du Lac Fire Rescue and North Fond du Lac Ambulance were on scene. in the event their services were needed. So yeah, a lot, and then of course the DA's office. So a lot of resources and a lot of teamwork and collaboration to get these people in custody and ultimately hold them accountable.